What actually sounds better, Logic Pro or Waves plugins? Last week I made a video talking about the differences between Logic and Waves plugins, but I got some feedback wishing there was more actual sound comparisons. So this week I decided to mix the same song twice, once using Logic stock plugins and once using all the third-party plugins included with Waves. I also limited myself to only 90 minutes to make sure I didn't get too tweaky on either of the mixes, and then I loaded them both in this session so that we could go through it and check all the instruments soloed up, hear the mix together, and have a true A-B comparison of these two suites of plugins. Here we go. Kicking it off with acoustic drums. These are not live drums, they are from Addictive Drums, and I printed the stems over. On the Logic mix, I did just regular compressor, I did the classic VCA, and then I did some basic EQ moves that you might see on a regular drum mix. And that is on the majority of the channels, even the overheads, rooms, and the hall. And then I ran it through the drum bus, which got the vintage VCA compressor and the console EQ for tonal shaping. And then I did juice this drive right here to give it some saturation because Logic doesn't have a ton of places you can go for saturation. So this plugin is definitely one of the good ones for me. On the Wave side, I did mostly SSL channel. This is great because it has all your filters, all your compressor, EQ all in one place. And then I did add R-Bass to all my close mics to help with the low end and put it kind of where it needs to be in the mix. And then on the snare specifically, I added Trans-X, which is a multi-band transient shaper, and then Berserk Distortion, which just makes it smack harder, honestly. So that is what I did there. And then for the drum bus, I did SSL channel and Sheps 73, which is the drop-in replacement for the bus that I did in Logic. Okay, here are the unmixed drums. Here are the Logic mixed drums. And then here are the Waves drums. I mean, both those mixes sound really good. I think I do favor the Waves a tiny bit there, just for that low end control and kind of the more smack and power that are on the drums. Next, this song has an electronic programmed kit to go along with the acoustic kit that brings in more of those hip hop elements. So on the Logic end, again, it's just a lot of regular compression and EQ, but you can see on almost all the EQs, I just did a low roll off. And then on the bus, I did the regular vintage VCA and the console EQ. And then on the Wave side, I wanted to make each instrument have a different set of a couple plugins just to kind of go through more of the depth of the full package of Waves plugins rather than just using the same 2 or 3 things over and over. So on these, I just did audio track and I mostly just rolled off and compressed and occasionally did a little bit of tone shaping, but nothing crazy. And then my bus, you'll see a lot of this bus on the Waves mix, but it's the SSL compressor and Sheps 73. Okay, electronic drums unmixed. Here are the mixed with the Logic mix. And here are the Waves mixed. Definitely some differences there. The Logic compression in particular feels more clean and clear, and the compression from audio track and Waves feels more squishy. I don't know if it's the auto makeup gain they had going on in the audio track, and I don't know which one I like better. They're just different. It's really subjective, but that gives you kind of a different flavor for each one. Okay, next is my stomp, clap, and percussion sections. For each one on the Logic side, they did get my standard bus processing. And then on the percussion elements, I did add just a little bit of extra EQ and compression. Again, mostly roll off and just gentle compression. On the Wave side, I had a little fun and I only processed the bus for this. So on the stomp clap, I did a big 1176 and Abbey Road Red 17. Just to get some different tools, different results, some variety. And then on the percussion, I did the Abbey Road EMI channel strip. So here's my stomp, clap, and percussion with no processing. Here is Logic mix. And here is the Waves mix. I'm sure you really heard the reverb on this, and I will get to reverb after instruments, so don't give me mean comments about that. It'll hurt my feelings. Bass is another one of those that has a lot of impact on the mix, so I did spend more time here. The Logic bass, I did my Studio VCA compression. I did the vintage graphic EQ, which is like an API 560 to do some tone shaping there. I put a limiter to hold it all together, keep it right up there. And then I did the sub bass, just Logic's low frequency enhancement. And then I did a channel EQ to dip out the fundamental where the kick was to clean up the low end there. Since there's not a lot of dedicated surgical tools in Logic, I just did it the old-fashioned way, which works great. You just ring out the bass where the kick is ringing. Super basic stuff. Just kidding. If you need help with your low end, let me know and I could do a video about low end. I'm not trying to hate on anybody. Okay, and then for the Waves bass, similar stuff. I did the LA3A compressor here. I really like this on bass. It's nice and smooth. I did the Magma channel strip, and I did a lot of drive on it to get some grit. I did R-bass to kind of clean up the low end, make it sit better with the kick. And then I did Submarine to add some sub-lows, and then L1 limiter to lock it all into place. So very similar processing as far as what's going on, just different plugins. So here is the unmixed bass. Here's the Logic mixed bass. And here's the Waves bass. I'm trying my best to be really non-biased through this video, but I do think in this instance, the Waves bass just sounds better between a mixture of the tube saturation from this Magma strip, and honestly, Submarine is just better than sub bass in Logic. I don't think that's debatable. Submarine just sounds better. It's smoother, it's newer, all the things. So that is the bass. So let's take a little checkpoint here and just listen to the rhythm section. Here is just the Logic rhythm section. And the Waves rhythm section. Okay, they both sound pretty good. There's definitely differences. You can hear them. You know, the Waves sounds a little more colored, a little more punch and power, but the Logic one is still good, still passable. Next is acoustic guitars. The acoustic guitars in Logic, same thing, compression and channel EQ. Not a ton of options there. And then on the bus, same thing I've been doing, console EQ and compressor. On the Waves side, I went with the Renaissance channel this time. This was fun. I've actually never used this. It is kind of like Audio Track. It's a full channel strip with everything you need, but it is the Renaissance series is like a little more vintage flavor, and the EQ curves are a little more vintagey and just gives it more vintage rather than digital feel. It's really subtle. I can hardly hear the difference as far as, you know, compared to digital tools, but that's what I did there. And then on the bus, I had a little fun and I did the LA2A compressor and the Shep 73 just to give it a little different compression flavor. So here are some unmixed guitars. And here are Logic mixed. All right, and here are Waves mixed. Again, they both sound good. The Waves one sounds more jangly, if that's a term you can quantify. And the Logic one sounds a little thinner, but that could have just been the mixing engineer. Again, I mixed these twice from ear. I did not, you know, compare settings. I didn't get tweaky like that. I just did what I felt was right with the tools. All right, next we're moving on to rhythm guitars. Occasionally on a couple of them, I did the Studio FET instead of the Studio VCA, but overall, same compressor, same EQ, doing my thing. And the bus, same thing. It's basically the same bus every time, vintage VCA and console EQ. Over on the Wave side, I did have a little fun because there's a lot of fun analog stuff you can do with electric guitars. The bus is the usual SSL compressor, Shep 73. That's kind of like my console. I just pretend that's my console and run everything through it. Let's see, we got an SSL channel. We got another Abbey Road EMI. My main rhythm guitars, I did the API 550, the LA2A, and the Kramer HLS. I really like this combination. Lots of color, lots of control from the LA2A. But first of all, here is the unmixed. All right, here is the Logic mix. Here is the Waves mix. Definitely a lot more color there. It's a lot more mid-rangey, really cut through the mix type of thing. That's probably mostly coming from this Kramer and the API 550s. They just have a lot of mid sauce, if you will. If you're enjoying this so far, please do me a huge favor and hit like and subscribe. It really helps my channel to grow and helps me get videos out there in front of new people. Next is our lead guitars here. Mostly either a combination of Studio FET, Studio VCA on the compression side, and then our good friend, the channel EQ. And then my bus is the same as always on Logic side. And then for Waves, what did I do here? Kramer fun stuff. So I did both my primary lead guitars here, Kramer HLS and Kramer PIE. Here are my two lead guitars unmixed. All right, here are Logic mix. All right, and Waves mix. Those are about the same. They both sound pretty good. Yeah, you can have your opinions there. So I have this whole section called Aux Strings. It's just any sort of weird stringy stuff that's not an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar. On the Logic side, again, just compression and channel EQ. Over on Waves, I did a number of things. There was a couple of them where I just didn't want low end, so I used Q1 to roll off low end. And then these over here, I wanted to try out the HEQ, which is staggering with the amount of things you can do. And then HComp, which is just another fun kind of hybrid compressor. This HEQ is really cool. You can change the type of band for each one and not change it from bell to shelf or that kind of thing, but change the actual response. So if you want a vintage US band for that, or a digital 1 or digital 2, and it changes the actual shape of the band. Really fascinating, but took me a lot more time to figure out than just the Logic channel EQ or a vintage style EQ. So it is hybrid, but it takes a little more time. Sounds really good, took more time. So I'll show you the unmixed. All right, and here is the Logic mix. Really cool, lots of texture. Here is the Waves mix. That one feels extra shimmery, and I think it's because I was having a good time with the different top shelves that were available in this HEQ. I did a couple US vintage, and then I did a digital one just to have different curves, kind of tweak the sound how I wanted. All right, next are the keys. We've got a mixture of synths and organs. Logic, you know exactly what I did. I did the Studio VCA and the channel EQ. And over on the Waves side, I went mostly API. I did the the 2500 compressor and the 550B on almost everything. And then on the organ, I wanted some extra grit, so I added the Magma BB tubes just to, yeah, I wanted that sweet, buttery B3 goodness. Here is unmixed. All right, here's Logic Mix. And over on the other side, here's the Waves Mix. Honorable mention, just the grit on this B3. Here's without Magma. That's just, ooh, I love it. There's nothing in Logic that sounds like this. The Logic does have distortion tools, but whew, Magma BB Tubes is really good. All right, vocals. There's a lot going on with vocals. I have a vocal lead bus, which is all the kind of upfront stuff. And then I have the vocal VGV, which is doubles and harmonies. So on the Logic side, I started with the Studio VCA compressor. I needed a de-esser to handle the, the S's, the harsh stuff, and then just some basic EQ to get it sounding how I wanted. And then my kind of slow color compressor. I did the vintage opto for this. And then I ended it up with the tube EQ to add back in some fatness and sparkle on top. A lot going on there. That's generally what my vocal chain looks like if I'm mixing stock Logic stuff. And then on my bus, same thing. The two old faithfuls there. And over on the Waves side, for this, I decided to run with Silk Vocal. This kind of handles a few things right off the bat. It's my kind of multi-band control over the vocals, which Logic does not have a great tool for. I could have used multipressor, but I don't really care for that plugin too much. It handles my first level of dynamics as well as a gate. And I get my de-esser from this high band right here. So that tool handles a lot of things at once. Next, I use the SSL channel to kind of handle my tone shaping EQ, another level of compression. That's about it, kind of my color stuff. And then I added the Abbey Road saturator to really just smack it. This song needs grit and power, and I got it from that plugin for sure. And then on the bus here, since I was doing so much other processing, I only did some gentle compression. So I think you'll hear a lot of differences here and a lot of different colors here. Here are the unmixed, just lead vocals, kind of top line vocals.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
There's that. Here is the Logic mix.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
And here are the Waves vocals.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
I'll spend a little more time on the vocals here because that's really important to people. So on this Waves one, let me turn it all off and I'll add it back in for you here. So again, here is nothing going on.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild.
Here is Silk vocal added in.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace it.
It doesn't really do any coloring. It just cleans it up. Here's SSL channel added in.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself.
Here's Abbey Road saturator.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down.
Here is the bus compression.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better
And delay.
pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down.
Insane. I love that. Here is the Logic one. I'll do the same thing, kind of walk into the plugins. So here's unmixed again.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're
First compressor.
pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace.
Here is de-esser.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild.
Channel EQ, this is some cuts, gentle shaping.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself.
Second compressor.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better.
And tube EQ. I really like the vintage tube EQ in Logic. It's really powerful. And I pushed some drive too.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself.
And then my bus compressor.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better.
And console EQ.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself.
And of course, delay and reverb.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
Here is the waves.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going.
Really interesting differences there. They're both really good. And when we get into effects in a minute, I'll be sure to dive into that and show you kind of what the differences are there. Background vocals. So on the Logic side, I did basically the exact same vocal chain, some tweaks to EQ because vocal ranges are different, and I de-essed a little harder because that's the thing I like to do to help the background vocals sit under the main vocals. If you de-ess a little harder, you're not going to hear all those S's hitting at slightly different times. So here are the background vocals with no processing.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down.
And here are all the Logic plugins.
Back it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down.
All right. And here is the waves. On the waves ones, I had fun and I just did CLA vocal. Why not? And then on the bus, I did do the de-esser, the SSL compressor, and magnitube channel strip just to do some additional shaping and grit. So here's the waves.
Back it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
All right, here's all the vocals together. I'll start with the Logic mix.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
And here is the waves vocals.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
I like with the waves, number one, the Abbey Road Saturator sounds really good, but then having the difference of just throwing CLA vocal on the background vocals, not having to spend too much time on it, this is where I made up on my time from spending too much time on the HEQ earlier in the song. As far as effects, bus sends, I did the same 5 sends for both songs. So I have a slap echo, a delay, a room reverb, a hall reverb or a long reverb, and my parallel compression. So in Logic for these tools, I did the regular echo on slap. For waves for slap, I did H delay. Some things here that I noticed, the echo plugin in Logic, you really don't have a lot of control over the stereo image or anything really. And then with H delay from waves, you have all the control. It did take me a little longer to dial in a sound on H delay just because there was more options. Here's the slap on the Logic vocals.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
Pretty good. Right up the middle. There's nothing you can really do to add some stereo width to that slap. So that is a complaint of mine. And here is the wave side.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
I think between the modulation that this has, the ping pong, and the filters, this is just a superior delay to Logic's Echo. I don't really think there's arguing there. And the analog settings, it's just better. It's a better plugin. I don't know what to say about it. Okay, delay. This is kind of my longer, like my throw, whether it's eighth notes, quarter notes, that kind of thing. For Logic, I used the stereo delay plugin, and I have an eighth note and a dotted eighth note in ping pong. And for waves, I went with CLA Epic, because why not? So I have a tape delay doing eighth notes, and then a throw delay doing quarter notes. Just a lot, there's a lot more going on there. Here's the Logic delay.
Pack it up, this is our house.
Here is the waves delay.
Pack it up, this is our house.
They both sound really good. I personally enjoy using CLA Epic a little more just because you have way more than just delay. Like you can do whatever you want as far as time-based effects with this. But the Logic one, surprisingly good. You know, usually I'm not a fan of it, but it can hang in this situation. So for room reverb, I did for Logic the Quantec Room Simulator. Sounds really cool. I did the Countryside Church setting. And I lowered the reverb time just a little bit. And then I had to treat it with EQ afterwards because it had no roll-off or filter within the plugin. On the Waves side, I did Abbey Road Chambers. I've actually never pulled up this plugin before, so I used it for the first time on this mix, and I really enjoyed it. It did take a second to kind of figure out the bass cut and all of that stuff, but once I got it, I really liked how it sounded. So here are the Logic drums through the Quantec Room Simulator. Here's without it. Here's with it. Definitely a nice room sound going on there. All right, for Waves reverb, here we go. Abbey Road Chambers. Without it. I love the snare sounds so good in that room. Both really good options. I'm a big fan of Logic's reverbs. Some plugins in Logic I don't really care for, but the reverbs are definitely really good. And a lot of times I will go for Logic reverbs before Waves reverbs, just because I know them. I know, what I like and how to get the sounds quickly with those. All right, for my big reverb, my big vocal reverb, I did in Logic, I did Chroma, and I did the vocal hall, did some tweaks. And in Waves, I did Abbey Road Plate. Now, I know that's not apples to apples. I just grabbed what I thought sounded best for the song on each mix. So the best reverb I can get on the Logic side was that Chroma verb, and then I just really liked the Abbey Road Plates on this one for Waves. Here are all the vocals in Logic, and the only effect is the Chroma verb.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
Really good. And then over in Waves land, here we go. This is to Abbey Road Plates.
Pack it up, this is our house. 3, 2, 1, now we're running wild. Better brace yourself, cause it's going down in the Lone Star State.
Reverbs again, it's a toss up there. They both sound really good. I do like the Abbey Road stuff. Maybe it's because it's newer to me, but Logic stuff can definitely hang there. I don't have any beef with Logic's reverbs. Okay, here is Logic Parallel Compression. I have drums going to it, all my effects, my bass, my electronic drums, a little bit of percussion, stomp clap, and some vocals. Because without it, that sounds really good. That's probably one of my favorite parallel compressions I've come up with. All right, on the Logic side, I used the H compressor. This is really good for parallel compression just because it has this punch control and some analog feel. So here is the Waves parallel compression. It makes those transients offensively punchy, but in the context of the mix, it sounds incredible. The last thing that is really impactful for this mix is the actual MixBus processing I did on each one. So for the Logic mix, I started with my regular vintage VCA, and then I did a 2BQ for tonal shaping on the whole mix. And then I wanted some color, so I added Chroma Glow. I normally don't use this at all, so it was interesting to get used to it. And it's really easy to overdo it with this, so I had to pull the mix way down to 20. And then for the Waves bus, I did my SSL compressor. I did the Pultec style EQs again. It's kind of annoying you have to load both plugins where Logic has them both on one, the mids and the high-low. And then for the Waves mix, I added IDX just to control my dynamics across the whole thing. I really like this plugin on the master bus. It's just you turn the knob and it makes it better. All right, here's Logic mix with no bus processing. All right, here's Waves mix, no bus processing. Now I'll go back and forth between the two so you can hear the MixBus processing differences. So here is the Logic mix to start. Waves. From a mixing engineer perspective, there was something satisfying about working only with the tools in Logic. It's really limiting and it makes you get creative, but also just really dial in on your basics, making sure your EQ curves are perfect, making sure you're hitting the right compressor settings, some more granular stuff like that. With the Waves mix, on the other hand, I had a lot more fun reaching for different tools, different colors, different ways of doing things for each instrument. So they were both satisfying mixes, but for different ways. My thoughts on the overall sounds of the mix. Logic sounds like an excellent flat mix. Just it's clear, you can hear everything. There's a little bit of saturation, but not too much. And then on the Wave side, it's a lot more dynamic to me. It has more powerful lows, more punchy highs. The mids just seem in the pocket a little bit better. And that's probably because of all the dedicated tools and the way I felt creatively inspired to mix that song with those tools. Some places Waves definitely wins is on low end control, saturation, dirt plugins, and variety of analog tools. I don't think you need those to get a good mix because I think my Logic mix is definitely passable. It sounds great. If I delivered that to a client, they'd probably be fine with it. But the Waves mix is just a little better. At this point, I'm going to play a big chunk of the song and switch back and forth between both mixes as I go. And as I'm doing that, let me know down in the comments which you prefer. Let me know your thoughts on each mix and let me know if you think Waves plugins make that much of a difference in your session. If you want to check out any of these plugins, I'll have them all linked down in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and here is the true A/B comparison.
Check 1, 2, gonna make big moves now. Come on down to the city, yeah, where we kick it up from 10 to dusk, cause we always play to win. Yeah, now buckle up for a good time, cause this is how we roll. Right here in Austin, welcome to the show. Let's go! Everything's bigger in Texas, everything's better in Texas, everything's hotter in Texas, in a big way. Bringing the bone like a stomp clap, oh have mercy. Better give it up, don't mess with us, cause we always play to win. Yeah, now buckle up for a good time, cause this is how we roll. Right here in Austin, welcome to the show. Yeah, everything's bigger in Texas, everything's better in Texas, everything's hotter in Texas, in a big way. With the big shots and the big crowds, yeah, this is how we do in the deep south. With the big trucks and the beat down.